The following video is me attempting to understand the minimum requirements in a video game for each very tiny baby step getting through it. I've done several videos on this, and the reason is that, number one, everything is subject to change. Number two, you can be on a server on the internet playing the game we're talking about, Rust, that modifies all of these things. And next, it's very common for people to simply skip explaining what they're doing in the game. So this video will be about upgrade guides for your starter base in Rust and or how to do the core of a building. Now we're going to be basing this on the absolute bog standards. You can make a square-shaped base that's a single, we'll call it a tile, that's a 1x1 box with a door in it. Adding another door to it, you can put a triangle on it and have it put a triangle on top where this is the door, and then it has this wall here, and then there's the doorway at the top over here. So you have two doorways, 1, 2, 3, 4 walls, and then a pair of panels for sealing up the top and a pair at the bottom to seal up the bottom. Also, to start this, you have to expend some of your resources to even begin. So we'll start with the beginning. A building plan in order to build this, first step. Second, when you build this, you have to build it in what's called TWIG. This is the expendable version of the wood material and commodity and resource that you have for making a wood building, or you can just upgrade from there. Now, this does have a logic of sorts in reality, but we're not addressing reality, it's a video game. So you spend a certain number of units of wood to make a building plan. This is equivalent to printing it out or drawing it on a piece of paper. You have to expend some materials. Okay. Now, if you're not aware of it, in the game, when you get a hold of wood or stone, you can do it two ways each. One of them is called a pickup item. That's how it is in most video games. And the wood pickup item, they only have one of them, is to pick up a tree stump. And it always has the same value, 50 units of wood per stump. And there's the stone pickup, which is where you pick up a rock, and it has the equivalent to 50 units of stone. If you're to build a wall that required 500 units, it means you'd have to pick up 10 of these big rocks. That would be the equivalent to making an entire wall. The presumption and rationality of it is that you bust up the rocks and make it into a wall panel. Okay, that makes some sense. Even though that's not really explicitly done, and it's subject to change. But anyway, so we pick up our wood by picking up, let's say, stumps, or we can get up to 1,000 units for a single, preferably dead, big tree being cut down. It requires a tool, and you start off the game with a tool that's very inefficient and only gives you about half of it or less. The most efficient ones being better quality hatchets and that sort of thing. So, for building this building, we have to have 4 walls, 2 doorways, 2 foundations, 2 ceilings, and the 20 wood units for a building plan. Now, this adds up, for making the walls and such, only 77 units of wood. And we build it in the TWIG format, meaning it's partially see-through, it's very weak, but it's kind of roughing out what's done. And on top of that, you could put on the next layer where you upgrade it to wood by putting wood panels over it. That's actually how the rationale of this works. And that's not far off from a couple of building techniques that exist. Another one is to immediately upgrade to, let's say, Adobe or some other thing where you would put something else to it, or stones. And the TWIG would act as a scaffolding to put it to. While this is kind of convoluted in rationalization, it actually has some basis in reality. So since the building itself costs 77 units of wood, and the building plan is 20, sounds like you're paying a bill to the city planners, what you end up here with is spending almost 100 wood, or 2 tree stumps, just to get something that looks right. We don't even have doors in it. We haven't upgraded it to something that can tolerate being kicked hard. Now, to make a door costs 300 units of wood. That means we have to add 600 onto it, so our 100 unit of wood building, just to have doors, is now almost 700 units of wood, or 14 stumps. Literally, if you threw the rock you used to harvest wood with at the building, it would break a wall, but the door would be standing there, because it's tougher. Now, let's lock the door on our TWIG base. That's 75 units of wood per lock. So to do just one lock, we would be using almost as much as it took to build the whole blasted base so far in twigs. Now, and no, there is no twig version of the door. That would be fun. I think a rug hung up would be the door. Okay, let's move on. In fact, I think someone found a way to do that. Don't quote me on that. Actually, no, I've actually seen it. Someone closed up their base by putting rugs over the door. So literally, a cloth door would work. Anyway, you need really 3 of those, bare minimum, if you have 2 doors. So we've now added up 75 times 3, etc. So we're at 225 from that or so added to it. So we're now up to almost 1,000 wood, or almost 20 stumps, but it works out to 19 stumps that you have to get a hold of. That's just to build the building, put doors on it, and not make it to where it can tolerate a stiff breeze. We have to upgrade it later. And now we have to do the tool cupboard or tool cabinet or whatever, the TC. That takes 1,000 wood. Yes, the entire amount to put doors on a twig building that isn't capable of tolerating even a swift kick. The same amount of material almost is just for this TC. And all it does is grant you, sounds like planning commission, grants you rights to an area and you're staking your claim. That's all its major purpose is. That and the fact that it can keep feeding resources to maintain it because guess what? All of this stuff ages rapidly and falls apart from the outside in. Anyway, we're at now 1,912 wood. 39 stumps. And at that point, literally more than half of it is just one item. Let's move on. Now that's a wood door, airlocked, 1x1 starter that's entirely made out of twig that can be burned by accident and kicked in or whatever by literally throwing a rock. Not even a big one. It now needs a hammer, symbolically, that is used to upgrade it. It costs 100 wood or 2 stumps. So now we've gone up to over 40 stumps just to upgrade this. Now, 2012 wood or 41 stump total starting point twig base if we add it all together with 3 locks, 2 doors, and the rest of the building built. Seems like escalation of costs. Again, planning commissions. And anyway, let's move on. In order to upgrade to wood, I'll just give you the number. It's 1,550 wood units to actually clap the thing up with wood and make it a little tougher. That means the doors and the walls are almost equivalent strengths, and that's 31 stumps added on. So now we're at spending, just to have a wooden building that can still be burnt down, but it's a lot tougher, 71 stumps total, or 3,542 wood, or if you could get full optimization on harvesting a dead tree, preferably, because it gives better yield, a big one, a little over 3 or 4 trees cut down. Suddenly you're starting to see why people just go for that instead of picking up almost 100 stumps is going to be needed. Let's move on. Now, if you don't want to do that, you stop entirely at the over 2,000 wood. In fact, if you leave one lock off, it's going to be about 2,000. But let's say we have 2,000 wood. Okay, that's 2 good-sized trees cut down. You've built your scaffolding and stuff like that. It's kind of there. Now you can upgrade it with stone. How much stone does it take to do this? It's just one little square box and one little triangle with 2 doorways. That's going to cost you 2,295 stone to upgrade it. The number of stone pickups is about 46 stones. So we're nearing a number where you're seeing this number coming up right now. Instead of upgrading it to wood, we leave it as twig, which means we're at 41 stumps. And then we get 46 stone units, 46 rocks that have 22, almost 2,300 stone units in it. We've upgraded. Okay. Now, at that point, you're pretty much done. Now, what that amounts to is find 50 rocks and 50 tree stumps, build a building, and you'll be almost done. At that point, do it again because they keep respawning. The more people around, the more fast they respawn, and grab them. Most people go for trees because it's immediate gratification. It's also a mini game when you're mashing a tree with a big rock, or you've got a salvaged axe or whatever. Now let's move on. What about a metal fragment base? I call them frags. That requires 1,550 fragments. That's equivalent to finding 32 metal rock pickups, smelting it using the equipment needed to make a smelter, which is 8 rocks, 13 stumps, and 50 low-grade fuel. Now what that amounts to is you have to go from really twig, we're not doing the other stages, we're going twig to sheet metal as they call it. You end up having to find 150 animal fat, 50 cloth or 5 hemp plants, and that'll make your low-grade fuel, and then you have the 8 rocks and 3 stumps worth of wood that are needed to make this thing happen, because you're going to be using the wood to smelt the metal. And that'll give you the 32 metal rocks converted into 1,550 metal fragments to upgrade the entire base, not even including doing the door. By the way, you can get the fat by harvesting 7 expired players. Let's move on. Very macabre. A 50 low-grade fuel, 200 stone, 100 wood small furnace, which is what most people start off with, takes 1 wood to smelt 3 metal fragments out of 3 metal ore units. Each chunk of metal rock has 50 of them. So, and those are found by cliffs, edges, mountain, rock formations, picked up or broken off of the rocks. So, you can do that. So, at 50 metal ore units per rock that's metal, that has no variability to it, no harvesting mechanic, you just pick it up and run. You can get these while running. You can pick up stumps and rocks, including the metal rocks, while running at full speed. You just have to practice it. Without tools, you can do that. Or you can get a metal ore node and use a stone pickaxe and get 485 each out of it. You can get 600 each if you jackhammer it or get a metal pickaxe or metal tool. So instead of giving you 1,000 units of metal ore, you get about 850, or excuse me, 485. Now you'd have to burn 50 more stumps to smelt the 5 metal rock pickups to 150 metal ore to also make a single door. This starts having economics kick in that are very similar to the actual metallurgical industries we run into in reality. Now, if you were going to do this base this way and doing all this work, the more efficient way to do it would be if you could just buy the metal frags, and there is that data. So what have we got at the end of this? Well, I answer my question here, and I'm going to review really quickly the answer. To build the base, the bare minimum with an airlock. It's about 100 wood to build it, but it's nearly double that. Actually, it is double that more to even make it to where it's viable enough. And then if you upgrade to wood, you're throwing more wood at it when you could just go to stone. The amount of time you'd spend harvesting basically 2,000 wood is 2 big trees and like 1,000 wood, or excuse me, 1,000 stone from rocks is another couple of nodes. That's why people do it. But also, just running at full clip and just finding on the ground, oh, it spawns some rocks and it spawns some stumps. That's enough right there. But yeah, it works out to 50 rocks and 50 stumps. And you have a stone base with wood doors. And again, it takes a lot of metal to make the doors. That's why if you find a sheet metal door, keep it. So I was looking this up for 2 reasons. One, I wasn't able to get anybody to just quote this because it kept changing every few months for about 2 years. So nobody did. Number one. Number two, the information I'm using may have been outdated a year ago, or it may be valid now. Next, most of the calculators I found on the internet got all this wrong because they gave different answers. And I am using rustlabs.com because it's the least broken one. If this has been useful to you, number one, I'm amazed, and number two, I'm happy that you're better off for it. But again, this is for a video game, and I'm trying to figure out the mechanics for one big reason. I want to make a better version of this game. There, I said it. Even if it's a thought experiment only. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.